every company is a media company is because you're not only producing goods and services anymore, right? Like that's part of the equation. But the other part of the equation is getting people to know your product even exists. And that used to be a very straightforward proposition back in the day. Okay, so I'm going to create my brand. Now I'm going to go advertise in my local paper. I might have enough money to buy a billboard. Perhaps I'm going to jump into radio or TV. Like it's a cookie cutter experience. Anyone can follow along. Now, whether their ads are great or not, that's totally different conversation. But the methodology was pretty much the same, and it was the same for a long time. The introduction of social media changed the distribution model, and that's what changed everything. The distribution of content is the gatekeeper that used to make it very clear what pathway you'd want to take as a brand that's launching. Now, there's the traditional route, if you have the money for that, if you can buy the attention, or you can use storytelling on social media and create your own marketing ecosystem that you can kind of control yourself. I mean, obviously, you can't take your followers with you yet, which will be what social media 3.0 is. It'll be built on blockchain, and you'll be able to take your followers, would be my guess. Whoever the platform that builds that first will win. But that's the way I look at it. So you have control of your own marketing ecosystem if you can create your own channels of distribution. And that's what social media made happen.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Full Bounty Media Podcast. I've got an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and what you do?
I am Leejon Killingsworth, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Coyote Ugly Saloon.
Awesome. How did you get into that path, man? How did you find this? Like, where the fuck did you start to get all there,
Dude, so it is a very bizarre pathway. I moved to Vegas in the late 90s when this new sport called the UFC came out.
Right.
And I was in college at the time when that came out. And I don't know if it's because my initial path that I thought I was going on my whole life was to go pro hockey. And it looked like that's where I was going. Right when I got to the finish line is when I burned out. So I was playing junior A, and I got my collarbone broken by my own team member in a warm-up as a goalie. In a warm-up before literally preseason game. The guy broke my collarbone, and I was out for the rest of the season, and I never just went back. And when the UFC came out, that same kind of inspiration and love was there for me, because I was a lifelong martial artist. So this was bizarre to me. How is these little skinny Brazilian beating these 250-pound monsters? Like, it didn't make sense. I was a karate guy, dude. And I didn't know anything about grappling. I didn't really respect it. Like, I had friends that were wrestlers, but it just wasn't in my calculus of what I needed to be doing until I got smoked in a street fight by this wrestler. And I literally, as a black belt, I couldn't do anything to this guy. So it really made me refocus. And I started looking at this new sport. UFC came out. The first contest was actually illegal. So they recorded it. Yeah, it recorded it and it came out 2 years later in video stores. And I was running video stores at the time in college. I had worked for Blockbuster before I was even 18. And I got handed my first keys at 18 for my own Blockbuster store. So
wait. That's literally one of the coolest things that I've heard of late. Like, that's rad. That's rad.
It wasn't, though. All I had to do was really show up and be responsible and do the job. And I was able to get them to hand me keys for my own store at 18, dude. Like, that's crazy. But I mean, technically, I was already running my own stores at 16 for a small operation, like a mom and pop operation. So it wasn't that different. But looking back, I'm like, God damn, they handed the keys to a whole store to an 18-year-old, which is insane to think of now. Like, I wouldn't even think of doing that now.
No way.
All I had to literally do, though, is really just show up and be a halfway decent employee. And I stood out from just doing that.
Sometimes showing up, I had to I made a comment today. I was talking to my team and I said something, and one of my workers turned to me and said, "Who's the most dependable person here?" And I was like, damn, that's like a brutally hard question, because I was thinking about performance, what people are flashy, what people get the most done. And you know what I said? I said at the end of I thought a couple minutes, and I said, this one worker. And he's like, why? I said, she comes 5 minutes early every single day and never takes a day off. You know, she's always here and she does a consistently good job. It's not flashy, but she shows up and she works hard. And he's like, and I was like, but nothing, man. I said, see if you can beat her here every single day to work. You know, she shows up, she lets other people in. And I was just like, that's pretty solid. And he was thinking there was going to be some metric, person who completes the most of this, person who does that. And I said, no, it's like sometimes the most important thing is showing up.
Yeah. Agree. Especially nowadays. Like, it's just hard enough to get people to do that. I had to literally fly people in my Key West location. I couldn't even keep locals hired because they would quit because they wanted to go to the beach on an afternoon instead of going to work. So it was really difficult. We had to import people. So it's just, there's definitely a change in the dynamics between hourly staff and today's business climate, so to speak. It just, everything changed after COVID in my industry. Everything changed.
Right? Super true. It's interesting too. Like, I was just going to make a point on that too. And it makes complete sense. Like, I was hiring last month and I booked, 20 interviews. Do you know what happened to 10 of them? They were in the hospital. And yes, I did just use air quotes. They all these people said I was in the hospital, and my workers were like, no one said that. I took screenshots and I posted them to our group chat. I was like, look at this, and people were like, I'm not doing that anymore. I was like, see, some of you guys did that though. They're like, yeah, because the people don't ask questions. People, if you say I don't want this, I don't want that, people will judge you. But so I say that just to kind of walk away. But one of the things too, it's wild to me because we live in this state of constant attention, and tonight I was in the bar with my wife and there was a guy sitting next to us and he's like just suddenly speaking Vietnamese, but like, he didn't just talk Vietnamese. I speak Vietnamese too. And I was like, when I order some bữa like, chị cho anh một chai nước suối, it's just chill. And he was like really loud. He was like, he was like, hey everyone, I'm going to order this. And it's like, I'll take on the menu. And it's like, wow. And what I was thinking, I talked to my wife, so I was like, that guy is really, really, really trying to get attention. Like, he wants everyone to hear him. And like, it's so interesting because I look at my daughter, how she gets attention. I look at my staff. You see all these people that are seeking attention. Businesses seeking attention. I once had one of my teachers in school say that attention is our most valuable resource. Yet he says, because it's just the one thing that everyone is competing for. And you say, and I want to ask about this, that attention can be designed, not chased. What does that mean in simple terms? Because that's fascinating to me.
There is no simple terms, though. That's the trick. So attention, I was first taught attention, economics, attention framework from massive brands. So the first company, like I just mentioned Blockbuster, but the first company I ever worked with that was really a brand-based company, I worked with Charles Schulz, who did Peanuts, the cartoon strip Peanuts. And I was working at the Snoopy Ice Arena. Now, the Snoopy Ice Arena, yeah, that's where I went to high school. That's where I'm from.
Dude, I grew up in St. Helena, right across the mountain in Napa Valley, man.
Oh, okay. So I lived in Healdsburg. That's where I went to high school.
Small world. Okay, cool, man. Small world.
So yeah, so I worked there. What most people don't know though is that his office was actually in the same parking lot. So they had the ice arena, and then they had the gift shop. So the gift shop, which was a separate building, housed his office where he drew all Peanuts in the second floor. So
that's wild. I didn't know that.
Now, being part of that organization was really cool because not only was he such a big hockey guy, and I played for the state team, Team California at that time, and he was such a big hockey guy that I actually played hockey with him. I played hockey with his son, who was a pro in Europe, and I taught. I was my first qualification for becoming a professional athlete was as a professional rollerblader teaching camp rollerblade with Charles Schulz's daughter. She was part of the governing board when rollerblade launched. So she was a famous figure skater herself. So this is who my first education into branding came from. Everything was Snoopy. Everything was Peanuts. Like branding was everywhere. So there was a consistency in that started my foundation on attention and how you can the architecture behind attention.
Yeah.
After them, it was Blockbuster, or
Mhm.
video stores in general. So video stores are a great example of a marketing machine that is finely tuned, right? When
Yeah.
I was just a clerk, I would get in videos. Every Tuesday was the new video day, right? And some videos, some movies came with a whole package of promotion. It came with
Mhm.
stand-ups, it came with posters, and sometimes keychains and giveaways and all this stuff. And you would see big movies have these entire packages that came with them, and then these small movies that definitely did not. And you could see the difference on what movies were getting rented versus which ones weren't. And then you're looking at, dude, I looked at box covers for years, box covers of
Mhm.
movies, which was basically training me on which ones can get attention and which ones can't, right? Because I'm one
Right.
putting these back. So this is where the education all started. Big brands, and I would go on to work with Macy's, and then I would go on to work with the Planet Hollywood team. The company named Enoch is who really was the company behind Planet Hollywood. And they partnered with Warner Brothers in 2000 on a massive concept that was going to be an updated version of Planet Hollywood, but more upscale. So the food
Mm.
was fine dining, exquisite, like chefs. It was a 65,000 square foot venue that is now called Tao in the Venetian.
Mm. Yeah.
But at the time when I was running it, it was called Warner Brothers Stage 16 and the Velvet Lounge. And that was a massive project that they took 4 of the set designers from 4 of the biggest Warner Brothers movies, and they actually recreated these sets of famous movies like Casablanca, Ocean's 11, and Gotham City from the original Batman, which was one of the coolest rooms. And so that's the last place I was working at that really was a massive marketing engine, right? So there's the big dollars behind really curated, perfect looking content with the money
Yeah.
behind it to get the attention. When Coyote Ugly opened in Las Vegas, I was over at the venue that's called Tao, and 9/11 happened. When
Mm.
9/11 happened, Vegas shut down for a year, basically. People just stopped
Mm.
coming. Obama mistakenly said something in one of his speeches about not going to Vegas specifically. What he was trying to say is don't waste money right now. But what ended up happening is he kind of made a push, a marketing push to not go to Vegas, and it worked. People just didn't come. Coyote Ugly opened right at the end of September.
Mm.
They had over 1,400 girls just try out for the job. Just the job to try out for it. It was insane. Like the line of 1,400 girls going down the strip outside the New York casino. When it opened to lines every night of the week. I had never seen anything like it. The general manager from the restaurant at Warner Brothers went on to become the general manager at Coyote Ugly. And she called me and was like, listen, you need to come look at this place. We are doing $1.2 million a month out of 2,500 square feet in a venue that has never worked for the last 10 years. The spot we put Coyote Ugly in hadn't worked for 10 years. It was a Rita Rutner comedy shop that didn't work. And then it was Hamilton's, which was the famous actor who had a steakhouse there, didn't work. Coyote Ugly has been sitting in there since 2000, still operating today, which is the most bizarre part of that whole equation because Vegas, nothing lasts that long. They will take out whole casinos within 10 years of being built sometimes. So it's just, there's no appreciation for anything vintage. It's all about who's busy now, who's got the attention now. And we're still there. The question you asked me was, how did I get involved? So she's the one that turned me on to it, right? At the time I was running the venue, Tao, I was actually putting together my own concept in Summerlin, which was like the young, hip neighborhood of Las Vegas where all the scenesters would live, basically. And I was putting together a top restaurant in a project called Boca Park. While I was doing that, the Coyote Ugly thing just came up and I couldn't let go of it. So I turned my attention away from the project in Boca Park and solely on becoming a franchisee of Coyote Ugly. Found some financial backers, put my shit in storage, and basically met up with Lil in New Orleans in 2001, 2002, right in the beginning of 2002, I think, and met with her with my team. We wanted to get a license for Fort Lauderdale, which is where my financial backers were based out of, and Fort Lickerdale, which was its nickname at the time, was a very busy nightlife district. So I put all my stuff in storage and lived on this dude's couch for 4 months. Found a location, was meeting up with Lil, and at the time, Lil started using me as an independent contractor to help her become a buffer between her and one of our franchise groups that had kind of fell apart. They all split up. There's 8 of them, and they all fell apart and split up. So she needed help dealing with just them alone. When my partners saw that I was doing some side work with her, they tried a little shady contract switch on me and tried to get me to sign a contract that would basically make them have to give me approval before I could do that. And one of the partners, 2 of the financial backers, one of them, I wasn't very familiar with Wall Street at the time, but one of them was doing some stuff that just did not seem very real. It didn't seem like that's how business should work. It was Boiler Room. If you ever saw that movie.
Yeah, totally love Boiler Room, man. Giovanni Ribisi, man, and Vin Diesel, man.
Dude, this is what he was doing. Same kind of bullshit stuff. So I dissolved my partnership, and I had nothing. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, not where I'm living. I've now been out of Las Vegas for months, which might as well be years in Las Vegas terms. I put all my eggs in this basket, and it wasn't working out. So I ended up having to walk away, but Lil at that time had a franchise group in Dallas. Now, the Dallas franchise group were military. So they did not have a hospitality background, and they needed help with their opening. So I came out there and helped them with their opening and did such a phenomenal job that at the end of that opening, myself and Lil and Kevin, who is the hammer and nails guy, and our attorney sat in the Adams Mark Hotel lobby and formed the new company that is opened every Coyote Ugly 6. So that's
amazing.
how it, not the way I thought it would have.
Right?
But I mean, dude, I moved to Las Vegas to fight in the UFC, ended up working in my moonlighting job as a career, and now I'm next to probably the most famous bar owner on the planet, and I'm helping her expand her brand. So that's kind of how it worked out for me.
Was this all like intentional, or did this just all kind of fall into place though, man?
It was not. I mean, there was intention behind everything I was doing, but this was not the plotted path that I laid out for myself. This is not the direction I thought I was going. But I needed to zig and zag at the appropriate times when the opportunities arose, right? Like there was a big opportunity in the UFC, don't get me wrong. But even today, and I was talking in the late 90s when no one had even broke $1 million yet. Chuck Liddell was the first fighter to break $1 million. And to be perfectly frank, if I'm going to be honest, there's maybe 2 or 3 UFC fighters that have made the money that I thought they should make. And that's it.
Right.
Boxing, there's way more money in boxing. So
that's why all the YouTubers are doing it right now,
Exactly. And my whole plan was I wanted to fight in the UFC just to get a name for myself so I could open my own school. That was the end game for me at that time. It was not on my radar to be opening a chain of bars all over the world. At the moment I was moving to Las Vegas, but when the opportunity arose, I seized it, and I've been doing it ever since.
See, and that's where it's at. Like one of my friends said that, great business is seizing the opportunity that's in front of you. And, if you are able to do that, you're going to be able to move forward. And it's just about moving incrementally forward. And certainly we all take steps back, but if you can take enough steps forward, you continue moving in the right direction, And
I think they're more pivoting now than they used to be.
I agree though. You have to do kind of this dance. Like the success is not a straight line. Success kind of is this winding thing that goes all around and back and forth. And we just have to get there how we get there, And yet I feel like if you can be intentional about what you're creating, it's powerful, especially in the day of we're looking at people that are building media and content, and if someone's starting from zero and they're trying to get real attention, what should they focus on first?
So basically, if you are starting from zero today, and the temptation is to start with logos and colors and identity, but the reality is you really have to establish clarity before you do any of that. Like who you are and where customers are and what problem you're solving are more important than the logo is at this stage. You have to really understand what you are doing and what you're building. And if you try to appeal to everybody, you're going to appeal to nobody. And that's
Yeah.
the biggest lesson right there. You're going to be incentivized, you think, to try to make this as vanilla as possible so the market cap is as big as possible. But the
Yeah.
reality is, especially in the beginning, you have to show what team you're on. Who they ain't us. Okay, well, who's us? And if they ain't them, who are you? That's the most important thing, I think, at the beginning you have to establish.
And it's interesting too, because you've said that every company is a media company now. What does that require from leaders, and what does that even mean?
So every company is a media company is because you're not only producing goods and services anymore, right? Like that's
Yeah.
part of the equation. But the other part of the equation is getting people to know your product even exists. And
Right.
that used to be a very straightforward proposition back in the day. Okay, so I'm going to create my brand. Now I'm going to go advertise in my local paper. I might have enough money to buy a billboard. Perhaps I'm going to jump into radio or TV. Like it's a cookie cutter experience. Anyone can follow along. Now, whether their ads are great or not, that's totally different conversation. But the methodology was pretty much the same, and it was the same for a long time. The introduction of social media changed the distribution model, and that's what changed everything. The distribution of content is the gatekeeper that used to make it very clear what pathway you'd want to take as a brand that's launching. Now, there's the traditional route, if you have the money for that, if you can buy the attention, or you can use storytelling on social media and create your own marketing ecosystem that you can kind of control yourself. I mean, obviously, you can't take your followers with you yet, which will be what social media 3.0 is. It'll be built on blockchain, and you'll be able to take your followers, would be my guess. Whoever the platform that builds that first will win. But that's the way I look at it. So you have control of your own marketing ecosystem if you can create your own channels of distribution. And that's what social media made happen.
That's amazing. I even think about that, being able to like take your own followers with you at some point in time, but it makes sense, But
That's what everyone wants to do now. You can't. So that's why everyone's cross-platform posting and trying to just spaghetti at the wall everything. I'm
Right.
going to cross-promote my TikToks on my Reels on Instagram, and now you're seeing it on LinkedIn too. Like videos for years didn't do anything on LinkedIn. Now, I'd say last year, that's changed.
Yeah,
I'm seeing it change live.
It is. And it's like, because everyone's trying to build demand. Everyone's trying to, but yet no one's figuring out how to do it, because everyone's doing it in these roundabout ways. What I mean by that is, especially with AI, I see people just going, well, I need to get stuff out there. I need to put content out. And so they're getting AI generated scripts, and it feels spammy, man. And,
It
one
feels
of the things,
very spammy.
it feels super spammy. I stand by that. Tonight, I posted a picture on LinkedIn that was just me, and I met up with my brother recommended this business guy who was here in Vietnam, and he's like, hey, meet up with this guy. He's a really cool guy. And I posted afterwards, I was like, dude, I just met the coolest motherfucker. Like, he was cool as hell. Dude was chill. And it was no pretense. It was a guy from Texas. And it was just that Texas, straight shooter. And we just had the greatest conversation. There wasn't any of this, what's transactional? What can this person do? We just had a great dinner. And we went back, and I took a photo, and I was like, this is where I'm at. And I said, sometimes the best thing you can be in business is not a jerk, not an asshole.
Dude, I think that is the key.
And I mean, yeah, exactly. Right. And I shared that because, it was where I'm at in that moment. But I can go and generate AI generated scripts too and put that out there. But people don't care. The craziest thing? The other day, I told you my daughter, and for anyone who's listening and doesn't know, my daughter was sick for a week and a half. She had a bad stomach flu. Started as a nasal thing, went into her throat, cough, and then it went into the digestive tract, and she was vomiting everywhere like crazy. And projectile vomiting. We were walking out of my room and she just like shooting on the floor. And the other night, I went to bed and I was doing this. She's staying home. Her mom's traveling. I'm working from home with my workers, trying to manage a sick kid at the same time for 3 or 4 days while her mom was on these business trips. And finally, like that night, she was like, she had just vomited, and I took a picture to send to my mom. My mom's like, "How are you doing?" And I took a photo, and I was like, just looked like shit. And I was just like, "This is where I'm at right now, Mom." And that photo looked so horrible that I was like, I'm gonna post that shit on LinkedIn. I was like, it's funny. For me, it's funny because I'm like, everyone posts this like, be productive, get it on. And I'm like, this is where
My
I'm
brand,
at.
look at my milestone.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'm like, this is where I'm at. And I was like, sometimes being a business person is about just it's like, you don't have the win. You just, you're there. That post crushed it. It absolutely crushed it. And what was wild is because everyone was able to like relate to it. People were like, dude, I was there last week. Another guy was like, thank you for posting this. He's like, I am so overwhelmed and everyone says I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. He's like, my kid's homesick too. And I don't know what to do, man. I'm exhausted. And I think that authenticity is something that's so important. And, I don't know, man. I don't know how we always create it without it being fake, but and that this is a question too, like how do people, because that's such a catchword, be authentic. The best authentic marketing I've seen lately though is this battle that's going on. I don't know if you've seen this, but like the battle between Wendy's and the CEO of McDonald's, right? Dude,
oh my God.
So funny, man. He banned it. He
dropped the ball.
Oh, he could have fired back. Like McDonald's dropped the ball so horribly. Like they could have run with that attention, but instead he's fired back. The funniest part about that is the guy trying to be like, it was a normal bite. And then he's like, you are now blocked. And I was just like, that's the funniest thing yet. And Wendy's is just leaning in on it. And like Wendy's is winning that whole thing because, McDonald's could have won. Could have won.
Dude, Wendy's taught me the clapback strategy. They started doing on Twitter. I started doing it on one of my pages on Meta. I went from 87,000 followers, which took me 20 years to build, to I'm at 200,000 followers 6 months later doing a clapback strategy. I'm getting paid thousands of dollars off of this page because of trolls. And that was taught to me by Wendy's.
I love that. Well, how do people keep it authentic without feeling, because like when companies try to be authentic, McDonald's was trying to be authentic. Let's have the CEO take an authentic bite.
Look at this burger product. I think legal made him call it a product. Is that what happened? That's what it seems like. Did legal make them call that a product?
Oh man, it had to have been because he's like, everyone calls a product a product. I was like, dude, and everyone online is like, I work in restaurants. We don't call it a product. It's like ridiculous. But like, what's the difference between like brand building and like performance? Because like that authenticity can feel performative.
I'm telling you, is one way to find out if you are doing performance marketing or branding, and that is if I turn the money off on the machine, will people still be looking for me, or do I go flat? And if I go flat, then it's performance marketing. If people are still searching me out, that's branding. That's the easiest way to tell. If you suddenly lose everything because you stopped the machine, pumping money into the machine, the marketing machine, then you've been doing performance marketing.
Interesting. So like, how much do you create things, or have you created things that last beyond just the next post, And it has to.
I think the evergreen content is becoming a thing. Like it didn't used to be. Dude, I started on MySpace. And when I got on MySpace, I had one of the top 10 accounts on the whole fucking platform, bro. I gamed it a little bit. I could tell you exactly what I did. So
I want to hear.
I was in the nightclub business. Obviously, I'm in the bar business. And I opened a nightclub in Atlanta with a couple buddies of mine. So MySpace was pretty popping at that point. So I wasn't from Atlanta. I had a decent MySpace. It was okay. But when I got to Atlanta, I don't know if any of these promoters are still in the business, but they're going to hear what I did. So basically what I did is I went into every promoter in Atlanta, and there was this thing I could use to basically create a list of all of their followers. And then I could friend request it. It was an auto friend requester. It wouldn't make people like anything. It wouldn't make people interact with you, but it would send out requests for you. I was able to build to one of the top 10 accounts using that strategy. And now, of course, you can't, because I was requesting thousands of people at a time. And that strategy put me on the top of the MySpace list. I had twice the followers that Carson Daly did at the height of his career on Total Request Live on MTV. So it worked. And then I used it to just promote my bars, promote the nightclubs. And to be honest, I was a single guy. I was using it to date. I traveled all the time. So I was never in the same city very long. So I would use MySpace to just meet people. And it worked. Before MySpace, I was using, I don't remember what it's called. There was a picture rating site where you could throw a picture of yourself and let people rate you of hotness. Hot or not. That's what it's called.
Hot or not. And
so that was the first thing I used for market research. And that's the way I looked at all of these kind of platforms, as a way to really dig and get data that was not easily available to me. So that's what I used them for. Now it's this whole ecosystem that's completely changed since the MySpace days. And I tried to throw a boycott on Facebook because I was so mad after building MySpace so high, and it just crumbled overnight. I've never seen anything like it. I boycotted Facebook for a minute. I tried to. Obviously, it didn't work, and here I am. But yeah, that was an interesting period of time. And very educational as to why you do not want to put all your eggs into one platform's basket. Because I had to start over from scratch after that, and that was rough.
Yeah. I want to ask you this, like, how can you tell if a brand is truly breaking through versus just paying for visibility too?
Yeah, so that goes back to the branding versus performance marketing. Essentially, once the machine stops getting fed, if you're not giving it the revenue to keep putting your ads in front of people or your posts in front of people, and everything stops, that's performance marketing versus branding. That's what it boils down to.
If you were to like give someone advice today, they're working for either a brand or for their own thing, and they want to start making impact in the next 90 days, what should they do?
So for the next 90 days, I had them all organized in the Porter. Basically, you want to definitely define your positioning and highlight what makes you different. What's your unique offering that's different from your competition? That'd be the one thing. The second thing, you'd want like some sort of signature asset or experience that embodies the difference that you guys are offering. So it's something like visual or repeatable and story-worthy, which is like us having girls dancing on the bar, bringing customers up on the bar, body shots, penalty shots, singing, all of the above. Like all of that is the stuff we used in the early part. Like that's what helped make us as famous as we were. For sure. The uniqueness of what we were doing. I mean, look, what did we do? So Lil, in 1993, I don't know how familiar with the bar industry you are, but I can tell you that the movie coming out had an impact on staffing on all Las Vegas concepts. Everybody. I can tell you, because I was hiring people going from the 90s to the early 2000s, that the thought was that you hired all male bartenders and one female bartender, maybe. And the thought always is that, oh, men are just faster than the women. That's why you want the guys back there, because they're faster. But what Coyote Ugly pointed out, and my entire staff shifted. I shifted my own club staff to mostly women behind the bar after the movie. What you find is that people, both men and women, preferred ordering from women. They just did. They do. As a street promoter, I would always use a woman over a guy. I don't care if the guy is Brad Pitt. An average girl is going to smoke Brad Pitt as a street promoter. Just going to do it. That's what's going to happen. They're just better at it. They're better at getting attention. They are less, I don't know if dangerous is the word, but there's just an easier, it's a lot easier telling people to go to a party as a woman than it is as a guy. There's just, people care more about what she had to say than what the guy has to say. And we took that and we saw that the male-dominated industry that has been going around for 2,000 years, this industry goes back to ancient Rome, right? Like they used taverns to empire build. They used to tell distance by how many taverns you would pass in order to get to the place. And they used it as missing infrastructure. It was a hotel, it was a medic bay, it was a court, it was a jail. It's where you resupplied. So this industry goes back thousands of years and it's been male dominated since the beginning. she saw an opportunity by putting just women behind the bar. That created quite a spectacle so big that it became a movie, a reality show, and a global operation because we put people that had been kept out of a job in place and then gave them a stage and a spotlight. And look what happened when we did that. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of bars out there with movies made out of them. Shit, there's not a lot of companies out there with movies made about them. There's something compelling about the story of Coyote Ugly. And part of that, the compelling part, is that we put women in place where men had dominated for 2,000 years.
Wow. What do you think, if you could go back and change, anything earlier in your career, what would you change? What would you try to focus on more or learn more of?
I was a bit of I think a butterfly at times when I could have probably been more intentional. There was a period of time I moved to Vegas and I got divorced shortly after, like everybody that moves to Vegas, married. And it did put my life into a bit of a tailspin where I call a few of those years like a really long weekend because it's just what it was like. I was just chasing the next party, the next night, so that I didn't have to think about how my entire life fell apart when I moved to Las Vegas and my wife betrayed me with my best friend. Like, it was awful, an awful period of time that I tried to just numb myself from. That was probably not very useful. And I could have probably started on this path a lot earlier, but at least I didn't waste a lot of time on it. It was a couple years where I was a one long weekend, and that would be the only thing I would say. Other than that, like, I've just kind of always pursued what I was passionate about, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I could have gone a more traditional route, and I probably would have been an easier time to make the same kind of money that I'm making now. But this was an interesting, unique challenge that I apparently needed at the time in my life. So would I do it differently now? Probably, but it's hard to second guess it because it did lead me to where I'm at.
That's awesome. Well, where can people go to find out more about you and what you do?
Right now, the only place I'm really posting is on LinkedIn, and it's linkedin.com/in/Leejon, Leejon 00.
That's awesome, man. Well, I
Or
appreciate
just look me
all
up
of
there.
it. Yeah, dude, you're dropping some wisdom on me today. And I just think that it's so interesting and important to talk about attention, because I don't think we talk about what's capturing our attention enough. And we're constantly getting pulled into different things. You see people that are just super focused. And I love asking why. Why are we so into this? And if you're working in the business of getting attention, how can you do it better?
Dude, I went in and I took every article ever written about it, hundreds of articles ever written about us. I took them and I fed it into AI, and I looked for common patterns. And it turns out there was like 9 common patterns in almost all the stories that they really focused on. So I took that and I built on what we have been doing for the past 20 years with this brand, and created a book called Make 'Em Look, which is about how you engineer the attention economy. How do you master the attention economy? Because attention is literally the only currency that never devalues. It's the only one. So we basically took what we've been doing for the last 20 years, and I've compiled it into a book that was about to be launched. And unfortunately, my CEO felt that I was being too forthcoming. So I'm on a rewrite right now, trying to dial in what she would prefer. But that book's coming soon.
That's
And
awesome.
we'll basically detail everything we did and all the steps we did, and the key elements to our brand story that were really important for journalists to start amplifying our message, so that people could use it as a code and build in their own brand stories in a way that's compelling to press, so that they hopefully can amplify what you're doing, and then you can build upon that attention. That's what we did. We took attention and turned it into a global empire with our fingers in licensing, franchising, merchandising, reality shows, movies, music groups. You know what I mean? So if you do it right, you can get your hands into a lot of different things if you build your brand story.